All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm so incredibly thrilled to have you here for another explainer. Today, we're zeroing in on a very specific and honestly a wildly fascinating date, April 29th, 2026. If you've been glancing at the news lately, you know it feels like we are looking at a dozen completely different, totally chaotic global headlines. But what if I told you they are all deeply interconnected? Today, we are going to untangle this massive web of current events. We're going to trace the ripple effect from a major geopolitical epicenter straight out into our global society. And we'll do it by looking exactly at how these dominoes are falling.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the Middle East energy crisis, move into global diplomatic shockwaves, and then track the economic fallout. After that, we'll shift gears to big tech under fire and finally wrap up with global security and society. Let's get started. Section 1. The Middle East energy crisis. Because, to truly grasp why the globe is so volatile right now, you really have to look right at the center of the geopolitical map. So ask yourself, what actually happens when the world's most vital oil artery is just completely blocked off? Right now, we are looking at an unbelievably intense standoff at the Strait of Hormuz. And guys, this isn't just some localized squabble. This is a massive, massive choke point for the entire world's energy supply. The stakes here are absolutely immense, and this blockade is basically acting as the primary pressure cooker for everything else we're about to talk about today.
Now, right at this moment, we are stuck in a serious diplomatic stalemate. Based on the reports coming in, Iran has formally offered to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but they have strict conditions. The U.S.-Israeli coalition must lift its blockade and end the ongoing war. On the other side of the table, U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed clear skepticism regarding that proposal. So we're essentially watching a really high-stakes staring contest between global powers, and right now, nobody is blinking.
And that brings us to a really crucial number today, 2. This conflict between the U.S.-Israeli coalition and Iran has been raging for 2 full months now. 2 whole months. We're not talking about a quick weekend skirmish. 2 months of a severed energy artery means 2 months of compounding strain on international shipping, on military resources, and on diplomatic channels. That duration is exactly why the pressure is boiling over into some really unexpected areas. Take this, for example. We're seeing an absolutely unprecedented institutional shift. The United Arab Emirates just announced its exit from OPEC. I mean, wow, that is a massive blow to the oil cartel. For literally decades, OPEC has been this rock-solid, stabilizing force in global oil, but the intense pressures of this 2-month crisis are fracturing old alliances. The UAE's departure severely weakens the organization's global influence right when the energy market is arguably at its most fragile. Moving on to Section 2, Global Diplomatic Shockwaves. You see, an energy blockade and a military conflict of this magnitude force immediate, super high-stakes reactions from leaders thousands of miles away.
We are seeing this play out very clearly with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Reports indicate that Putin held a tense, 90-minute phone call with President Trump. During this call, Putin reportedly scolded the U.S. over its operations in Iran and issued a really stark warning of dire consequences if force is used again. It's a prime example of how this Middle Eastern conflict is pulling in major players from Europe and Asia and escalating the global rhetoric to historic levels.
Now, in totally sharp contrast to that, we have this landmark moment. King Charles III delivered a major address directly to the U.S. Congress. His message was a powerful plea urging Western unity and explicitly warning against the dangers of isolationism. Plus, he used that huge platform to strongly advocate for continued steadfast support for Ukraine. It's such a striking contrast, right? While some leaders are issuing warnings of dire consequences, others are making these impassioned pleas for solidarity.
Speaking of Ukraine, take a look at this number, 1,400. That's the distance, in kilometers, of the latest Ukrainian long-range drone strikes that hit Russian oil infrastructure. 1,400 kilometers straight from the border. And on top of that, Ukrainian forces also struck a sanctioned tanker in the Black Sea. This perfectly illustrates our theme today of a widening footprint of conflict. It's not just contained to the Middle East anymore. Military operations and infrastructure targeting are stretching further and further across the map.
All right, Section 3, the economic fallout. We've looked at the military, we've looked at the diplomats, but how does all of this geopolitical conflict actually impact the everyday global economy? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the exact domino effect we are living through right now. Step 1, the Hormuz blockade. That physical barrier instantly triggers Step 2,
A massive global fuel shock. We're talking soaring energy prices causing severe inflation in places as far away as the Philippines. Which then forces step 3, the U.S. Federal Reserve deciding to freeze interest rates at 3.5% to 3.75%. The Fed specifically cited the high uncertainty coming out of the Middle East conflict as the reason they couldn't cut rates. This is literally how a standoff in a strait halfway across the world dictates your borrowing costs at home.
But, even in the middle of this massive economic freeze, you get these wild anomalies. A Japanese-linked tanker actually managed to successfully transit the blockaded Strait of Hormuz, and they did it without paying any tolls. It's an incredibly rare, highly unusual, successful passage through a zone that is otherwise completely locked down. It just goes to show that even in a seemingly airtight geopolitical crisis, the complex realities of international shipping occasionally find a tiny crack to slip through.
Which brings us to Section 4, Big Tech Under Fire. Because while these physical battles over energy are reshaping the economy, there are massive legal and regulatory wars over digital power happening at the exact same time. Just look at the immense multi-front pressure squeezing OpenAI right now. On one side, you've got founder Elon Musk taking the stand in a trial, accusing Sam Altman and the company of literally looting a charity by shifting away from their original nonprofit mission. Then, on the completely opposite side, you have families in British Columbia, Canada, launching this staggering $1 billion lawsuit, claiming the AI failed to act on warnings regarding a mass shooter. This company is being squeezed by its own founders over corporate structure and simultaneously by the public over life-or-death societal responsibility.
And it's not just domestic stuff either. Tech regulation is absolutely being used as a geopolitical weapon. $2.5 billion. That was the massive price tag for Meta's planned acquisition of a Singapore-based AI startup called Manus. But Chinese regulators have officially stepped in and blocked the deal, basically rendering the AI model dead in the water. This really goes to show that control over artificial intelligence is now viewed strictly as a matter of national security, and countries are for sure not afraid to kill multi-billion-dollar deals to protect their interests.
Finally, Section 5, Global Security and Society. We've talked about the macro-level instabilities, the blockades, the interest rates, the billion-dollar tech lawsuits. Let's see how all of this trickles down to everyday civil society on a regional level. So the crucial point is that this high volatility is touching literally every corner of human life right now. Up in Canada, they're pumping $145 million into FIFA World Cup security for Toronto and Vancouver, which is a direct reaction to an increasingly unpredictable world. At the same time, Health Canada just approved India's generic version of the weight loss drug Ozempic, highlighting the continued globalization of medicine. But then look at the civil unrests. In South Africa, anti-migration marches in Johannesburg are triggering widespread shop closures and fears of looting. And over in Slovakia, the Supreme Court just upheld a 21-year sentence for the man who attempted to assassinate Prime Minister Robert Fico. From public health breakthroughs to political violence, the entire world is buzzing with this incredibly high frequency of change. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. With energy, tech, and diplomacy completely in flux, what on earth does tomorrow's headline look like? When you realize how a blocked strait in the Middle East influences a drone strike in Russia, which then pauses interest rates in the US, all while AI companies battle billion-dollar lawsuits, you start to see that reading the news isn't about isolated events at all. It's like one giant interconnected puzzle. Keep your eyes on these dominoes, folks, because the next one is definitely already tipping. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.